Welcome everyone to Canadian Yorker here, and I am back with another live stream video. I apologize for the mistake I made with the stream. I have to go back and correct this, but basically, I'm not doing a town talk video or not a fight video, but this is actually a video based on the basketball. So we're talking basketball today, and we are talking the NBA playoffs today. So in my mistake for the mistake on the title, I should of course corrected that before I started the stream, and I didn't. But I'll make sure I do it after this live stream is over. And so, in other words, let's get this started. So for today, we're just doing a couple of articles on the NBA playoffs. What just happened? That's annoying. So sorry about that. So we're talking about the NBA playoffs, and so in this article, so we're going to be talking about the Pacers versus the Knicks. That's actually going to be happening tonight. I believe tonight or sometime this week. The Pacers and Knicks are going to be playing Game 1 for the Eastern Conference Finals, and the first game for the Western Conference Finals actually happened last night between the Timberwolves and the um and the Oklahoma City Thunder. So in this article here, we're just going to kind of go into the Pacers and Knicks series. So as you know, uh, it's the first time in 20 years, in 25 years, 20 years, that the Knicks and the New York Knicks have actually made it to the Eastern Conference Finals. In the 90s, the New York Knicks were playoff contenders. They challenged Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls. They challenged the Houston Rockets with Hakeem Olajuwon. They were championship contenders. Um, Honestly, they almost won the NBA championship in 1994 when they went to the NBA Finals, and they actually had another run in the year 2000 where they also went to the NBA Finals again. So the New York Knicks have been around in basketball forever. As far as I know, I've always known about the New York Knicks. I live in New York, and I've known about the New York Knicks, but I have never seen the New York Knicks win an NBA championship. The last time they won a championship was in 1972 and also in 1970. So it's been a while since the New York Knicks have won a championship. It's been 50 years. That's a long time. So we're gonna see what's gonna happen with the New York Knicks winning a championship. Indiana Pacers, on the other hand, have been to the NBA Finals, and I believe that was back in 2000, where Reggie Miller and the Indiana Pacers went to the NBA Finals. I might be getting my history wrong here. I know the Pacers faced off against the Lakers, and they lost to the Lakers in and so the Indiana Pacers have been to the NBA Finals before, but they have never won an NBA championship. I might be wrong with my history. I believe the Indiana Pacers have won a championship before, but I believe that was when they were not with the NBA. Because they were the NBA was split into two different organizations at that time. So I'm not too sure in my basketball history, but if you wanted someone knows more about the basketball history, they can definitely just say a word in the comments about the history of basketball and let me know about that, and let us all know about the history more. Um, I know I'm going off on a tangent, talking a lot here, but without further ado, let's get into the article here talking about the NBA playoffs. So, this article here is written May 21st, 2025, from USAtoday.com, and it is talking about Pacers versus Knicks Eastern Conference Final storylines, and we have to watch out for some very significant X factors. So, according to the article here, it says the NBA is down to its final four teams. The conference finals matchups are set with number 4 Indiana Pacers taking on number 3 New York Knicks in the East, and the number 6 Minnesota Timberwolves facing the top-seeded Oklahoma City Thunder in the West. And in the East, the marquee matchup is at point guard, where Jalen Brunson of the Knicks and Tyrese Halliburton of the Pacers will be counted to carry on their respective teams. Yet each squad will need so much more to advance, from the role players up to coaches making the necessary adjustments. So here are 5 storylines to watch in the Eastern Conference Finals between the Indiana Pacers and the New York Knicks, when the New York retain balance and multiple contributors. When the Knicks have struggled in these playoffs, it's because they became too reliant on one or two players, typically point guard Jalen Brunson and center Karl-Anthony Towns, for offensive production. When New York has been at its best, the ball swings around and finds open players, exploiting gaps in defensive coverage. Players like forward OG Anunoby, for example, are averaging 19 points per game in New York playoff victories, compared with 9.3 points in losses. Will Tyrese Halliburton stay aggressive with his scoring? The Pacers have an adjacent concern, but it's in many ways the opposite of New York's. Indiana, simply put, performs far better when all-star point guard Tyrese Halliburton is aggressive and seeks his offense. Known as a distributor and one who led the NBA this season in assist-to-turnover ratio, 5.61, Halliburton can often become far too deferential. In Pacers playoff losses, he's averaging just 9 points per game on 9.5 field goals attempts. In victories, those figures jump to 19.6 on 14 attempts. A more aggressive approach from Halliburton usually opens up the rest of Indiana's offense. Halliburton is also averaging 2.3 more assists per game in wins versus losses. Rick Carlisle of the Pacers and Tom Thibodeau of the Knicks have coached 3,108 games in their careers combined, including the postseason. They're each savvy coaches who preach fundamentals and team play. They also have very clear philosophies they want their teams to embody. Yet series can often swing when a coach crafts a schematic change that breaks from a team's conventional approach, and when they deploy specific one-on-one matchups to neutralize the other team's strength. The coaching battle in this series should be fascinating to watch. Which X factors will step up? Against the Celtics, the Knicks saw backup center Mitchell Robinson, who posted a combined plus 46 plus minus across the 6 games of the series, play valuable minutes off the bench. Mitchell Robinson supplied energy and defensive versatility, at times guarding all 5 positions. Against the Cavaliers, the Pacers saw guard Aaron Nesmith provide valuable scoring, averaging 14 points per game. Deep in the playoffs, usually teams advance because of the contributions of role players and reserves. That won't be any different following this matchup. So, we have a fast versus slow. In many ways, this is a matchup of contrasting offensive styles. The Pacers like to play quickly, collecting boards and racing out into transition to destabilize opposing defenses. They rank 7th in the NBA in pace, generating 100.76 possessions per 48 minutes. The Knicks forward Josh Hart primarily do occasionally like to spin out in transition to capitalize on a mismatch, but they are otherwise fairly deliberate in half-court sets. They rank 26th in pace, 97.64. This series may go very well to the team that's able to dictate the pace and rhythm. So there you have it, guys. According to this article, the matchup between the Pacers and the Knicks really is a toss-up. It could go either way. Indiana Pacers could blow the Knicks out the building, and win against the Knicks, beat the Knicks to move on to the finals, where the Knicks could slow the Pacers down and, just grind them out, make them play defense, make them work. And that's what the Knicks can do. The Knicks have been physical, especially against the Celtics. They showed that they played very tough defense against the Celtics, and they really made them work for their points. Um, Excuse me. Um, Here's another thing that I wanted to bring to everybody's attention, and that is that the Knicks acquired OG Anunoby from the Toronto Raptors. The Pacers have also acquired a player from the Toronto Raptors. Because I'm a Toronto Raptors fan, the Pacers acquired Pascal Siakam from the Toronto Raptors as well. So both the Knicks and the Indiana Pacers both have former Toronto Raptors players on their teams, and they're contributing to their teams, making a difference. And so this is how far, now we're seeing the results of it. That both these players have contributed to both their teams and helped their teams to really get ahead. The Knicks should have you have Carl Anthony Towns, and man, well, Carl Anthony Towns certainly is making his mark known on the New York Knicks franchise, as well as Jalen Brunson is also doing the same thing. So, there's a lot that can be said. Obviously, the first game's going to start probably sometime this week, and we're going to see the results of who's going to be the team that's going to be advancing to the NBA Finals. Obviously, there's a lot that has to be said. The other part is the coaching matchup. Rick Carlisle has been with he's been with a lot of teams. I believe he was with Indiana before in the past, and he did win a title with the Dallas Mavericks, and he kept the Dallas Mavericks in kept them in playoff contention for years until they finally won a championship in 2011 with the Dallas Mavericks and Dick Nowitzki. So Rick Carlisle has championship level experience, so he does have an edge over Tom Thibodeau. But Tom Thibodeau has also been in many of these playoff situations. I don't think Tom Thibodeau has actually gone to the NBA Finals, but he did make it to the Eastern Conference Finals before. So Tom Thibodeau, you're not going to underestimate him. The only issue with Tom Thibodeau is that he likes to make the main players on the main roster to really grind out, just whittle the bodies down to dust. He works the main roster down, so that's something that Tom Thibodeau really needs to make sure to maintain the health of the Knicks and New York, the entire team, to make sure he's not overplaying the players in the playoffs. Because let's face it, this Eastern Conference Finals matchup could go to 7 games, and it could swing either way with the Pacers and the Knicks. And also there's history with this, because in history the Pacers and Knicks are bitter rivals as franchises. The New York Knicks and the Indiana Pacers have no love lost between them, and obviously this is a renewal of this rivalry between Indiana and New York. So obviously, we're having not only two different styles of play, clashing, two different types of coaches, two different types of players, but also two different types of places as well. So we have players that are going to be stepping up and making a difference. And especially for the Knicks, they did manage to get a lot of second chance points. The Pacers also, because they beat the Cleveland Cavaliers, they were able to make a difference and beat the Cleveland, because I believe they also were able to get the rebounds from misses that players shot. And so it's just this matchup is really a toss up between who's going to win and who's going to be advancing forward. So I'm probably going to be covering more of what's going to be happening in the Eastern Conference and Western Conference to see who's going to be winning, because we don't really know. Um, I haven't really looked at the stats about who's favored, so I'm not really sure who's favored, but I'm going to say that this is just a toss up. One team could prevail over another. And the Knicks haven't won a championship in 50 years, so that's kind of significant. But because New York is a special city, the city of New York is a very special place for basketball, and a lot of great moments are created there. Everybody in New York City is fired up and ready to go, and they can't wait to get past the Pacers and move on. I'm sure Indianapolis is also feeling the same. They want to see the Pacers move on. That's a lot to say for this live stream. So I want to get on to the second matchup, which already has occurred, with the Timberwolves versus the Oklahoma City Thunder. So this is from the previous one. Let me just go back to OKC versus Thunder. Let's see here. I need to find it. Yes, right here. So, according to this article right here from NBA.com, of course, I'm going to be posting the links to these articles in the description box for everybody to check out. So don't be afraid to do that. Read the articles for yourself. I'm always doing these live streams and reading the information to everybody out there, so that this knowledge can be shared. Because let's face it, a lot of people don't really read nowadays, and it's important to read, because reading, it definitely helps with gathering information, helping comprehension. So let's make sure that's done. So in this article from that was also released on May 21st, 2025. That's today. Both these articles were written today. So it says Timberwolves and Nuggets 5 takeaways as OKC opens West Finals in dominant fashion. Oklahoma City won Game 1 against the Timberwolves, and so it says here they won it. It was like 114 to 88. They blew Oklahoma City blew the Timberwolves out of the water, and just won Game 1 in dominating fashion. So one of the things that I've noticed about the Timberwolves is that I think the Timberwolves have they play a lot like the Warriors. They definitely I've definitely noticed from others who have said commented on the Timberwolves is that they take many three pointers, and so that's something that obviously they're gonna take a 3-pointer. A lot of the NBA nowadays is very 3-point friendly, and they definitely emphasize 3-pointers more than they do the other aspects of basketball. So, but the Timberwolves definitely have to cut down just a bit on taking 3-pointers. They have to take 3-pointers and at the right point in time, at the right moments, not just constantly jack up 3-pointers, and so and expect themselves to win, because they have to play. They can't just play from the outside only. They have to play from the inside as well, from the mid range, but also get close to the basket. It's if they're going to be playing against the Oklahoma City Thunder, you're definitely not going to win by only taking 3-pointers every single time you play. We've seen that happen before in the past. I definitely remember. I think it was Houston Rockets. Obviously, made the craziest thing I've ever seen. Before I talk about this in the article, but the Houston Rockets, if anyone can remember, the Houston Rockets did the craziest thing I've ever seen. They traded away their their power forwards, their centers. They filled their entire team up with positions with people who were under 7 feet, basically point guards, shooting guards, small forwards, and they played those people. Yeah, who probably they had a power forward as well, but they had no center, and I think it was in the 2020 playoffs. Um, I just want everyone to remember that. But remember the Rockets? I think it was the Rockets playing against the Lakers in the first game of the during the 2020 playoffs, where the Rockets only shot 3 pointers every single shot, every single chance they got. They shot, what was it, 27 3 pointers throughout the maybe throughout the whole series, and it was just horrible, awful, just display of basketball. They had no answer for the Lakers in the 2020 playoffs, if anyone can remember that. And in all honesty, let's not see that happen again in this series. Let's not see that happen again. Not everybody can shoot like Stephen Curry, and it just doesn't make sense that the Timberwolves should copy that and expect that same result and expect themselves to win games because they can only shoot 3 pointers and not have a mid range game, not have somebody that can get close to the basket, post to get close in the post and shoot and make dunks and have post moves. Obviously, the NBA is completely different nowadays than it was in the past 20 years because the way they played in the 2000s, in the 2010s, 2000s, in the 90s, in the 80s, they played completely different. It was more smarter basketball, fundamental basketball that was played. Like nowadays, it is not real basketball. It's more like a WWE style basketball. They're making shots, that's just the way it's seen and looked at. So in this article here, it gives us 5 pointers on 5 takeaways from the game. So let's get into these pointers here. So it says here there were 2 signs about Game 1 that gave Oklahoma City good vibes about the Western Conference Finals. 1, they won obviously, and 2, they won imperfectly. They stumbled out of the gate, yet trailed by only 4 points at half. The Kia MVP candidate Shai Gilgeous-Alexander wasn't his typical efficient self, but in the moment of truth when the opening game was ripe to be seized, OKC had all the answers and the Minnesota Timberwolves none of the solutions. So the first shot of the series was fired by the top seed. Oklahoma City was on the good side of a 144-88 score in a game that became a rout. The second straight such outcome for OKC, coming off a breezy Game 7 triumph 2 days earlier against the Denver Nuggets. Minnesota was the more rested team, but not the best team Tuesday. When the Wolves unraveled, they couldn't put themselves back together or adjust. By the time of the fourth quarter, the Wolves were done. Their main players sent to the bench, their heads already turned towards Thursday's Game 2, 8:30 on ESPN, and another chance to claim a game in OKC. Here are 5 takeaways from OKC drawing first blood and taking the early lead in the best of 7 game series. So let's just pause right there for a second. Minnesota Timberwolves beat the Golden State Warriors to get to the Western Conference Finals. Let's not forget that. The Golden State Warriors were playing, say, pretty well against the Minnesota Timberwolves. But unfortunately, their star player Stephen Curry got hurt, and so they lost. They were deflated. They lost a lot of the air in the wind once Stephen Curry. They managed to. They took the Timberwolves to, was it six games? Because they won 2 games, and the Timberwolves beat them 4-2. So, in all honesty, if Stephen Curry still was playing, I don't think we would see the Timberwolves I don't think we would see them in the Western Conference Finals, but we don't know that because Stephen Curry got hurt, and he's playing with a different type of roster now. But the the Golden State Warriors definitely had the championship experience, and they were showing that against the Timberwolves. Um, but in other words, for in this game, the Timberwolves were the more invested team, and the OKC Thunder definitely were taking the 7 games by the Nuggets. So my point is basically that um, the Timberwolves should have been the one to take Game 1 against OKC, but OKC definitely showing the resilience. They were able to get the first game win against the Timberwolves. That's exactly what happened. So now, because of what happened, what are the Timberwolves going to do going into Game 2? Are they going to improve? Are they going to make sure that this doesn't happen again? So we're obviously going to see what's going to happen. So, and let's see, the first part. So it says number 1, 4 letters, OKCD. The unit was top rated in the league all season, shutting down opposing teams and making their stars work for every shot. OKC's defense didn't really have a peer until now. In the series, when the Wolves showed that they can match that level, Minnesota held the Thunder to 44 points in the first half and essentially threw down the gauntlet. The challenge was accepted as Minnesota scored just 40 points in the second half. Defense gave us life, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander said. This game flipped on OKC's ability to keep Minnesota in check. The Thunder's defense kept the halfway deficit from being larger than 4 points. As coach Mark Daigneault said, that was huge. We lost the round, but we didn't get knocked out. Once the Thunder fixed the offensive bugs, the necessary balance was achieved, and the Wolves were helpless to prevent the inevitable. When the Thunder took the lead was kept. Jalen Williams was especially impressive with 5 steals. The Wolves had 19 turnovers, and opportunistic Thunder scored 31 points off them. It also helped that, aside from Julius Randle's big first half, 20 points, no one of the Wolves threw OKC for a loop, which means this. Let's read the next part here. It says here, number 2, Anthony Edwards was tame when the Wolves needed a boost. Anthony Edwards did not lose this game for the Wolves. He certainly didn't do much to help it win either. And that's the problem. The Wolves needed a superstar, and Edwards was unable to deliver. He had 18 points, 0 in the fourth quarter, and that's not going to cut it against the OKC team that had to endure a force called Nikola Jokic in the previous round and found a way to send him home anyway. The Wolves can't lean on Randle alone for volume scoring, not against OKC. The Thunder eventually figured out Minnesota's playmaking forward, whose biggest flaw is dribbling through traffic. So where was the player who says he is a strong candidate to be the face of the league, perhaps slowed by a turned ankle late in the first quarter? Anthony Edwards was relatively quiet for much of the game, especially by his standards. I guess I gotta shoot more, he says, quote unquote. I took 13 shots. So let's just put those two together. Anthony Edwards. So the first thing in the first part here, that's the Minnesota Timberwolves. It says here had 19 turnovers in this game, and the Oklahoma City Thunder were able to capitalize on their turnovers and scored 31 points off of 19 turnovers in this game, which kind of makes sense. I think it was reported that some of the other YouTubers online that I've been listening to, and I've kind of maybe looked at some of the stats that the Minnesota Timberwolves kind of have a high turnover rate, and so they do have to cut that down and make changes to that. Anthony Edwards, for the second part, definitely has to cut down. I think he has said that, shown that he does have a high amount of turnover rate, and he needs to cut that down. He needs to play smarter basketball, more fundamental basketball. And Julius Randle, obviously, it's not. Sometimes people have flaws, they have weaknesses, Julius Randle definitely has to trust his teammates more and to make a difference. Um, so there's a lot that has to be said here about the Timberwolves change. You know, they have to make adjustments in this series, because if they don't make adjustments, we're definitely going to be seeing the Timberwolves getting swept in this East Western Conference Finals against the Oklahoma City Thunder. That's definitely happening for sure. I could definitely see that happening because the Thunder are not playing. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, you know, his MVP, he's been absolutely amazing all season, and he's proving himself to be amazing in the playoffs. So there's a lot that has to be said in regards to, what the Timberwolves have to do if they want to, be in this series and make it to the finals this year. Um, let's just read the next parts, number 3, 4. So it's talking about OKC. OKC's bigs were too much. Isaiah Hartenstein and Chet Holmgren passed their biggest test in the semifinals when they teamed up to survive Jokic. This time, the opposing big man, is far less of an offensive threat. Rudy Gobert has trouble catching the ball, let alone shooting it, so the challenge was keeping him off the boards and neutralizing his defense. Once again, the battle of the bigs went OKC's way, and emphatically that Hartenstein dropped one floater after another on Gobert, while Chet Holmgren supplied point-blank buckets off backdoor cuts and lobs. All told, the 1-2 punch was too much for Gobert, and also backup Naz Reid. OKC's tandem combined for 27 points and 12 rebounds, while Gobert had just 2 points, 3 rebounds, and was mostly unplayable in just 21 minutes. It's a good weapon for us, Stegenstoll said. Coach Stegenstoll, for the OKC Thunder, said, at this rate, with OKC backing off Gobert, the Wolves must decide, do they value his defense and keep him on the floor, or do they value Reed's offense and therefore reduce Gobert's minutes? So let's just pause right here, guys. OKC has Isaiah Hartenstein and Chet Holmgren, who definitely have made a difference in the 7-game series against the Denver Nuggets. Chet Holmgren came in as a rookie, and he's made his mark in some way. He's helping the team to improve and to get past. Both these guys, Hartenstein and Chet Holmgren, definitely worked against Nikola Jokic, because let's face it, Nikola Jokic definitely, let's just say, he struggles against tough opponents. He definitely had troubles against Rudy Gobert, and Rudy Gobert, is definitely not known for his offense. He definitely struggled against better centers. He struggles. He's not very good at offense. So maybe they definitely have to mix it up. The Timberwolves have to mix up the offense and defense for Gobert and Naz Reid to mix it up. They want Naz Reid coming in and playing for a certain amount of time, and they want Rudy Gobert coming in and playing defense for a certain amount of time, because they need these guys to come in and get the rebounds, offensive rebounds, defensive rebounds, to keep the Timberwolves in the game. Obviously, they need the defense from Gobert to make key defensive stops, and they need the offense from Naz Reid to make, to keep the offense going. So they got to shake it up some way and somehow. So that's the next part. Number 4, SGA to the line. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. The frustration with Gilgeous-Alexander getting the benefit of the whistle boiled over in the first quarter. Edwards tossed the ball outside Gilgeous-Alexander's feet while the OKC guard was sprawled on the court following a foul call on Edwards. Anthony Edwards used a technical foul for that, but he took one for the team. That's all because of the Wolves were visibly annoyed with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander using his forearm to create space and his body to draw contact. Even the slightest was usually getting the whistle. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander took 7 of his 14 free throw attempts in the first half, which rescued him during a 2 for 3 half. The free throws and the whistles were costly for Minnesota's best on-ball defender, Jaden McDaniels, who drew his fourth foul just 4 minutes into the third quarter and was sent to the bench. He only played 24 minutes as Shai Gilgeous-Alexander effectively made his biggest threat disappear. He also sent the Wolves into an angry state of mind. So, Coach Finch said, quote, "We talked about that before the series. There was a lot of frustration out there. We have to be able to put that aside and get on with the next play mentality." So let's just focus on this part right here. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, right? So, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander definitely is making his ability to draw fouls known. Definitely is frustrating to watch if your opponent, and you don't want to be getting into foul trouble. But let's face it, foul trouble and it's just being smart basketball. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is definitely making his players work and trying to get him fouled. Obviously, we don't want to see him go to the point of flopping in the NBA. He has to definitely draw the contact and not flop to make it look like he's drawing the contact. I definitely hate to see flopping in the NBA. Flopping is just, it's not basketball, man. It's just like, you see flopping everywhere. You see it in football. You see it in soccer. You see it in basketball. I've never seen flopping in baseball, but if anyone has, let me know. Obviously, if anyone has, just say it in the comment section. But here's the thing, guys. Flopping in basketball, it's not basketball, man. You're just putting on an act trying to make it look like you're injured or you're hurt, unless you're actually legitimately hurt from somebody doing something to you. Then there's no reason to be faking it to try to make it look like you got hurt. Obviously, you can't. It shows that when somebody does that, they're not playing tough. They're playing like they can't handle the ability to take contact and go forward with it. That's what builds resilience. They're showing that they have no resilience. They're putting no effort, no resilience, no willpower. They have no willpower to actually stand up and move forward like a grown person will do. So obviously, and the other part that I want to focus on is, obviously for the Minnesota Timberwolves, Anthony Edwards definitely has to make sure that he doesn't get a lot of technical fouls, because I think over the season he had definitely drawn a lot of technical fouls during the season, so he should watch his back out to make sure he's not complaining too much to the officials, to the NBA referees. He's not complaining and not getting back and playing defense, and not just sitting there and arguing with the refs about calls, because you're not going to get it, man. You're not going to get it. Obviously, he needs to get back in the game and focus on the game, help the team improve. That goes for all the players. Obviously, you may have reasons why you might want to complain for whatever reason, but don't be doing it every single play. Obviously, don't do it every single time your team has the ball and you want to make a score and you don't get it because you're expecting it to happen, but it doesn't happen. Obviously, that's just irritating to see as heck. That's just irritating. So let's go to the last part here. Wolves need a big miss. Number 5. About that offense, Reed gives Minnesota. It was absent, along with production from the others off the bench. As Reed, Dante DiVincenzo, and Kel Alexander-Walker combined to shoot 7 for 36. They had open looks and missed most of them. Almost every miss was a gut punch for the team, desperate for a run and some buckets, or searching for ways to keep the Thunder from running away with Game 1. DiVincenzo's issue isn't new, as his deep shooting has fallen to 25% in the playoffs. He was 39.7% during the 24-25 season. There's a sense of comfort with Naz Reid because of his track record for bouncing back from poor shooting games. Not so with DiVincenzo. This is becoming a habit. And when the Wolves looks for another option on Tuesday, Alexander Walker followed suit and misfired too. In a contest between teams with deep benches, OKC won handily, getting them a surprising third quarter effort from Kenrich Williams, 8 points in 10 minutes, who has hardly played in the postseason. Coach Finch said, "We didn't have a lot of patience. Our rushed offense affected our defense. When we did get a good looks, they didn't go down. We've got to pick up our decision making, and we've got to clean things up a little bit." Close quote. So there we have it, guys. Talking about OKC versus the Minnesota Timberwolves. Obviously, the Minnesota Timberwolves have had plenty of time to rest and definitely study how they can beat the OKC Thunder. So they've had a full week? I don't even know how long they've had it. They've had almost a week to prepare for the winner of the Nuggets and Timberwolves series, and now they have the Nuggets and the OKC series. So now they're facing the Oklahoma City Thunder. So my point is, you've had all this time to prepare for the Oklahoma City Thunder. Why aren't you practicing at least every three times a week or 2 times a week to make sure that you're prepared to face your opponents? Obviously, I'm sure that they had time to prepare. They made sure that they definitely prepared, but things aren't going to plan. I don't know, but here's the thing, guys. My point is that if the Wolves are going to beat the OKC Thunder, they need to be on their A game, and they need to be playing smart basketball. Obviously, taking threes is not going to help them at all. So they need to make adjustments if they're going to play against the Thunder, because otherwise, as I said, things are not going to be looking good for the Thunder. But as for the Thunder, they need to make sure that they can limit the offensive explosion that Anthony Edwards can just do, and as well as Julius Randle. He's been around the block, and Julius Randle definitely has a chance to go into the finals for the first time in his career. I've never seen him go into the finals. Obviously, there's a lot that has to be said here. Josh Hart, also from the Knicks, he played with Julius Randle. I'm just going back to the Lakers, man. Josh Hart and Julius Randle were both on the Lakers when they were with Kobe Bryant. So obviously, it's the first time you're seeing former Lakers players make it to the NBA Finals and succeed. So if the Lakers were still together and they didn't have the team that they have now, we would probably be seeing the Lakers in the NBA Finals in 2025. That's all I gotta say. But I probably could see that happening with the Lakers. But not talking about the Lakers here. We're talking about the Thunder and the Wolves. And the OKC Thunder have been in the NBA Finals before. That was with Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook. They have been in the finals before. I've never seen the Minnesota Timberwolves ever in my lifetime make it to the NBA Finals. They came this close. They've been in the East Western Conference Finals, but they have never gone on to the NBA Finals ever. So it'll be a first time for the Thunder. For the Wolves to make it to the NBA Finals. So there's a lot to be said there, and there's a lot to watch out for. As both these series can, go forward and start, and they, see how they progress. So I definitely want to keep an eye out for both of these series and talk about both these things and see how things are going to go. And I think in my next live stream, I want to make an effort to cover a little bit about my Toronto Raptors and talk about how they did this year, kind of give an analysis of how things went down with the Raptors this year and look at how things are going now currently for them. So there's a lot that has to be said in that aspect. But for now, just wishing the best teams, whoever's going to be moving on to the NBA Finals and winning the championship, wishing the best teams the best of luck. For the Knicks fans, best of luck. Pacers as well. Same for the Thunder and the Timberwolves. So wish you guys best of luck. So I'm going to be ending the stream. Hopefully this was a good talk, and we definitely will be talking in another live stream. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a great day, and I'll see you later.